Josh Duggar child pornography case is officially closed.
Josh Duggar was born in Arkansas on May 3, 1988.
TLC didn't officially part ways with the Duggars until last year, 6 years after we first learned about Josh Duggar's abusive history.
First, though, we are following breaking news. Former reality TV star Josh Duggar has been sentenced to more than 12 years in prison on child pornography charges.
June 9th will mark 1 year since I started uploading videos to this channel. And holy shit, a lot has changed in a year. I really don't know what I wanted to do back then, but then with the help of friends, I ended up finding something I like doing. So I decided that since it is my 1 year anniversary, I should do something big for it. So I decided to do something that is more recent. So recent, in fact, that the sentencing hearing for Josh Duggar happened on May 25th, 2022. And I have wanted to talk about Josh Duggar and his family for a while. And it's not because I have a lot of love for them. I have to admit this, I am biased. I think this family is fucking weird and the patriarch needs to get a vasectomy. So yes, I can't hide the fact and not going to. Because I am about to show Josh Duggar, the son of Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, is a sick man. And his parents didn't do anything meaningful to get him help. Before we get into this, there's going to be moments of speculation. I am going to go off facts to make a theory. But it is only my opinion. I am not out to slander the Duggar family, so take my opinions with a grain of salt.
Don't question in the darkness what God has shown you in the light. And so when those days are hard and dark and dreary and you feel overwhelmed, which is often about every day, sometimes I think some of us moms have communicated with one another and you just realize this is impossible. It is. You can't live the Christian life in your own strength.
I use Wikipedia sparingly, sometimes as a reference point and sometimes for some facts. Throughout Wikipedia articles, you'll find numbers and brackets. If you click on them, they will go to outside articles. These are outside sources, makes things a lot easier to find. And while I can find a hell of a lot on Jim Bob Duggar, Michelle Duggar doesn't even have a Wikipedia article. Her name links to the 19 Kids and Counting page. What I can find of her is she was born on September 13th, 1966 in Ohio. When she was a kid, her parents moved to Springdale, Arkansas. There, she became a cheerleader in high school and became a Christian. She met Jim Bob when he and a friend decided to do a church visitation. According to old Jim Bob, it was love at first sight. And according to Michelle Duggar, she didn't even remember anything about that moment. But Jim Bob was born to a relatively small family on July 18th, 1965 in Springdale, Arkansas. Well, I guess Jim Bob had a thing for her and was love at first sight for him because the only time Michelle remembers meeting him was when she applied to work at his mother's yogurt shop. He encouraged his mother to hire her, which gave him a lot of opportunity to try to get her to go on a date, which she agreed to. On Christmas Eve of 1983, Jim Bob proposed. They married on July 21st, 1984. For a bit, they were all about the birth control, but Michelle and Jim Bob decided to have a child. So Michelle went off the pill and got pregnant and gave birth to the topic of this video. That topic being Josh Duggar, which I know he's the topic and we haven't talked about him, but patience. We will get to him. We need to set the scene. Anyways, Michelle went back on the pill, which somehow she ended up pregnant with another child, but miscarried, which a Christian doctor told her was because she was on the pill, which can happen. Not sure the circumstances behind it, but this moment caused Jim Bob and Michelle to decide to just leave it in God's hands, which I am sure God was totally rolling his eyes when he heard the news. So we wouldn't be talking about this group of overly religious morons if they had 1 or 2 kids. Nope. They had 19, all with names beginning with the letter J. I'm going to do a side note really quickly. My sister and I share the same first letter in our names, and our mother would sometimes call me by her name and her by my name by mistake. I am imagining how many times Michelle called someone by the wrong name, and it is slightly amusing. Anyways, this also means that Jim Bob really enjoyed a romp in the sack. But this gets more disturbing the more you think about it, because at first they didn't live in a house with a lot of bedrooms. It was like 3 at first. And once you get up to 12, it would be insanely hard to even find the time to make 13. It also means the odds that their children heard some things coming from the bedroom were high. I don't see a lot of people talking about that, but I am sure witnessing their dad being kind of a horn dog was not good for the mental health of those children. What also probably doesn't help was the almost cult-like rules and rituals the children were exposed to. Here's what I mean. Once Michelle gave birth to a child, she would take care of that child until they were a certain age. Then after that age, it would be up to one of the siblings to take care of the child, as in clothe, wash, feed, all the stuff a mother should do. It was called by them the buddy system, so their kids were forced to grow up fast. And I am not being ignorant about this. When Josh Duggar was first on television, he was a teenager around 15 to 16 years old. The Duggars had 14 kids at the time, and he was a buddy to some of them. Also, being a Duggar child meant that you couldn't dance. Dates had to be approved by Jim Bob, and he had a 50-page form for somebody to fill out. He would vet potential dates. The children could only side hug, couldn't watch television, listen to secular music. Girls couldn't wear anything but long skirts. No tattoos, no piercings, no kissing, holding hands, hugging potential significant others, and that couldn't all happen before marriage. All of them were also homeschooled. This was because they adhered to the lessons taught by the Institute for Basic Life Principles, which is a can of worms I really don't want to open because this video would be over 2 hours long, and we would get to Josh Duggar in hour 2. So to summarize, the IBLF, they were backwards as hell. Any stereotype you can think of for a fundamentalist Christian applies. Women have no rights? IBLF approves. Homeschooling to stay away from satanic thoughts like science? IBLF approves. Leader of it being a sex pest who harassed and assaulted women? IBLF certified. Discovery Health became interested in the Duggars in 2005 and did a special called 14 Kids and Pregnant Again, which was the first time we got to see Josh Duggar when he was a teen. Oprah Winfrey's production company became interested in them appearing on the Oprah Winfrey Show, but a letter to Harpo Productions, Oprah Winfrey's company, sidelined that. The letter suggested that the Duggars were not what they seemed and were hiding something dark. That dark secret was centered on Josh. In 2006, this letter wasn't known, nor was the tip sent to the Arkansas Abuse Hotline. The police investigated. In Touch magazine would gain access to the police report later in 2016, and this is the police report. It is 33 pages long, so I'm going to summarize some of this for the sake of moving on. But please, enjoy the slideshow while I talk about this. When Josh was 14 years old, one of his sisters went to Jim Bob to tell Jim Bob that Josh touched them inappropriately while she slept. Before I continue, I know that the sisters he did this to came forward with this, but I'm going to keep it vague because I am uncomfortable with this part as much as it is. Josh was confronted by his father about this, and Josh admitted to doing it. According to Jim Bob, he was punished for it. What that punishment was is unknown. In 2003, Josh had another incident, as Jim Bob called it, but this time, the sister was awake and was doing laundry. In fact, there were several other instances of this happening on 4 different sisters, and then to a babysitter. Not sure what to do, Jim Bob went to the church elders for advice. No police were called at that time. They decided that Josh would be sent to do hard labor as punishment. This was a faith-based rehabilitation center in Little Rock, where he had to do hard labor and other things like pray to God. Also run by the IBLP. If you do not see a problem with that, remember the guy that ran IBLP sexually harassed and assaulted women. Also, when asked by the detectives in the 2006 investigation if the counselors were certified at this place they sent Josh to, Michelle answered no, which means they sent him to a program where there was no one trained in helping people with Josh's kind of issues. According to the Duggars, when he returned in late 2003, there were no other instances that they or we know of. We are going to see a pattern later on, and it's hard to think that it just stopped. If anything, Josh possibly diverted his own interests or became better at hiding it. Jim Bob asked a state trooper named Jim Hutchins to have a talk with Josh when he came home. Again, the cop didn't take action, just gave what was described as a stern talking to. Jim Hutchins is in prison now, by the way, serving 56 years in prison for CP. Jim Bob said he knew Hutchins personally, but decided to throw him under the bus later when this came to light. Either way, Josh's sisters, who happened to be his victims, told police in the 2006 investigation that they feel comfortable with Josh being in the house. Which the fact that he was still in the house is amazingly dumb. The police didn't do anything more. Statute of limitations was up, so there wasn't much they could do. So this was a minor setback, but then TLC came calling and offered the Duggars their own reality show.
This is the story of my family. We're the Duggars. That's me. I'm Michelle. There's Jim Bob, my wonderful husband, and our children. Josh is our oldest. He married Anna, and they had our first grandchildren. Mackenzie, Michael, and Marcus.
TLC used to be a learning channel, but for some reason by the late 90s they decided to go all trash TV. And within that decade they started 17 Kids and Counting, which documented the lives of Jim Bob, Michelle, and their offspring. Then it became 18 Kids and Counting. If you cannot guess why, then you are too young to watch this. Then 19 Kids and Counting. Josh was all over this series. You couldn't miss him even with all the frickin' people in it. Viewers got a chance to see him court and marry his wife Anna. But this is going to be short. I never watched the show, and even for this I felt that if I attempted to watch the show, I would lose precious brain cells. So instead of making myself dumber, I am just going to move on. But not before sharing this.
We've built this ethos in this country to be fruitful and multiply without addressing the repercussions of that. Like it's not just about having as many kids as possible, but we glorify that. Like 19 and Counting, that show, you ever see that show? 19 and Counting, where she's got 19 kids? 19 kids. How do you have so many kids that you could have a softball team play your other softball team? And the last kid could umpire. Like, how do you have a league? She was gonna have a 20th. And then she miscarried. That's really sad, by the way. That's really sad. I hope no one ever has to deal with that. I hope no one ever had to or has to. I hope you don't. But her... I'm at a spiritual crossroads in my life. I don't know if I believe in God or not. I'm at that point in my life where I've begun questioning things, and I'm just really not sure. But that's the best proof of God I've ever seen. That's the argument right there. I wouldn't believe in God if it weren't for that argument. Because she went on TV the week before and she said, my children are a gift from God. And then God said, slow your roll. The first dozen were a gift, yeah, that's right. And then you started stealing shit. You've been running through the kid aisle like you're on supermarket sweeps. It's gone too far.
I had a golden opportunity. Not very often you get a chance to use a stand-up comedian's act in a true crime video. We all needed this moment of levity. Things are about to get dark. A lot of people don't know that Jim Bob Duggar was a member of the Arkansas House of Representatives from 1999 to 2003. He was a Republican, which isn't surprising. Also, Michelle Duggar dug her claws into politics with this.
The Fayetteville City Council is voting on an ordinance this Tuesday night that would allow men, yes, I said men, to use women's and girls' restrooms, locker rooms, showers, sleeping areas, and other areas that are designated for females only. I don't believe the citizens of Fayetteville would want males with past child predator convictions that claim they are female to have a legal right to enter private areas reserved for women and girls. We should never place the preference of an adult over the safety and innocence of a child. Parents, who do you want undressing next to your daughter at the public swimming pool's private changing area?
It's a robocall filled with lies and misinformation about transgendered people. Since Josh idolized his dad, he got big into politics as well. Not running for offices, though, but behind the scenes. He supported Mike Huckabee when he ran for president in 2008. He made speeches at rallies for Rick Santorum in the same presidential election, which is a theme since both politicians were anti-LGBT. He also was the executive director of FRC Action, which is a lobbying organization that was sponsored by the Family Research Council, which again is highly anti-LGBT. Safe to say that the Duggars weren't fan of people other than straight people. Josh also claimed that his family was, and I quote, the epitome of conservative values. Just gonna let you make what you want out of that statement because in 2015, 19 Kids and Counting would be canceled. He would resign from the FRC Action because of what happened when he was a teen came to light.
Did he explain why? I mean, was that a question that you asked?
He said he was just curious about girls, and he had gone in and just basically touched them over their clothes while they were asleep, and they didn't even know he had done it.
Duggar's past came back to haunt him. The cover-ups his parents tried to enact were undone. In Touch Weekly first reported on this, and the accusations snowballed from there to where the Duggar family could not avoid it. So the Duggars went on Fox News and were interviewed by Megyn Kelly, which was smart because of their political leanings. Fox News would give them snowball questions. There, Jim Bob and Michelle tried to explain everything away, but it was too late. Their reputation was hit as hard as Josh's, especially when Jim Bob said that stuff like what Josh did was natural, which I have never looked at my sister and thought incestuous thoughts. So he is an idiot. The sisters he allegedly did things to, and I say allegedly because again, I do not want to out victims even if they were already known, stated that they forgave him, which was nice of them. Or possibly because these kids are so brainwashed that they were acting in accordance to what their father wished in Minecraft. But who knows? TLC, being the blood-sucking entertainment entity that they are, canceled 19 Kids and Counting, but aired Jill and Jessa Counting On, which pretty much was the same shit but without Josh Duggar. This was the beginning of the fall, because after 2015, Josh Duggar's true colors began to show more and more. And well, while some would call him a genuinely good man, there's a dark side to him that just kept getting in his way. So Ashley Madison isn't a person. It's a site where married people can hook up with others outside of the marriage. You know, adultery, a sin in the Christian community. Well, there was a data leak, and guess who signed up to that site? Josh Duggar. Oh, he didn't just make an account to just check it out. He paid $986.76 for 2 subscriptions, meaning he pretty much was paying to hook up with women outside his marriage. And there was one who came forward named Danica Dillon, who was a porn actress. She claimed that he was violent with her, claimed that he left physical and emotional injuries. But this claim was proven false because he wasn't in the area that she said he was at the time. But back to the leak. Josh would go on the Duggar family's website and admit to this and watching porn. Which, watching porn is not really a big issue unless you're a Christian. I have been the biggest hypocrite ever. While espousing faith and family values, I have secretly over the last several years been viewing pornography on the internet, and this became a secret addiction, and I have become unfaithful to my wife, he wrote. He also admitted to having a sex addiction. He checked into a rehab facility called Reformers Unanimous on August 15th, 2015. So yeah, 2015 wasn't a good year for him. Josh would go quiet for a long time. That was until April 29, 2021, when he was arrested for receiving and possessing CP. I honestly feel sorry for his wife, Anna. Josh Duggar has done so much for her to want to leave him, but she hasn't. Anna has stood by him throughout this whole thing, even though he cheated on her in the past and showed that he was a sketchy man around children. Call it whatever you want, Anna stood by Josh through it all. and would continue to after it was found out he was looking at CP. But first, a little backstory. You see, after the whole porn addiction, sex addiction that Josh admitted to having, Anna and Josh decided to put a program on all his computers and phone. The program is called Covenant Eyes, and it pretty much logs what is searched on those computers and sends logs to the person that holds the account, which in this case was Anna. The program was on his home computer, his phone, and his work computer. Yes, Josh had a job. He worked in the family side business as a used car salesman. Also, remember his upbringing and the role of women in the family? Do you honestly think he liked the fact that his wife was able to tell him what to do and what to look at? If you answered probably not, give yourself a cookie. Because he found a way around it by partitioning half of his work's hard drive so that Covenant Eyes wouldn't report what he was looking at. And what he was looking at was stuff from the deep web. Stuff he shouldn't be looking at, and stuff federal law enforcement was able to track to his work computer. Cause Josh Duggar, though he learned how to partition part of the hard drive with Linux, was a moron and didn't realize that law enforcement monitors dark web activity, especially when it's CP. Homeland Security descended on the used car log and interviewed Josh Duggar. He had no chance to delete anything off his hard drive, and when agents took it, they found a lot of CP of children under 12 years old. Images of children the same age as his own. He had 6 children with one on the way when he was arrested in April of 2019. He pled not guilty on April 30th, 2021. He was released on bond but wasn't allowed to go home. And on December 1st, 2021, his trial started. Yeah, it wasn't that long. December 9th, he was found guilty. But his sentencing kept getting pushed back until May 25th. We will get into the sentence in a bit. During the time between the verdict and the sentencing, shit got real for the Duggar family. Jill, Ginger, and Jessa all made statements on how their brother was a good man. Same with his mother, father, brothers, and other sisters. Anna stood by him too. Amy Duggar, though, thought different. Amy is a cousin and pretty much badmouthed the family, claiming the obvious that they covered up Josh's dark side, arguing that just because he was a good person in other aspects of his life doesn't negate what he did. Amy was a champ. Jason Duggar, Josh's brother, also came out after the sentencing and stated that he still loved his brother and that the sentence was fair. Again, we'll get to the sentence soon. But his crime was punishable for up to 20 years in prison. Jim Bob, Michelle, and others were pleading with the court to only give him 5 years, which would have been a gross injustice, and show that they were willing to continue to cover up his crimes and sweep them under the rug. Seriously, this is just my opinion, but this is the moment I realized just how scummy this family is. Think of the children he was looking at. They were victims as well, victims of a sick and depraved individual, and he was more than happy to have them on his hard drive. And his family were totally wanting him to skate on this. Why? Because he was a good man? No, it doesn't matter if you're a good person at this point. If you break the law, you get punished. And for this crime, he still got off light, in my opinion.
No matter their wealth, their social status, or anything else, no one is above the law, and that's what this case demonstrates.
First, though, we are following breaking news. Former reality TV star Josh Duggar has been sentenced to more than 12 years in prison on child pornography charges. Thanks for joining us for your 5 News at 5. I'm Darren.
On May 25th, 2022, the judge in the case looked over the evidence, took into account the victim impact statements, listened to the family of Josh Duggar, and came to a decision: 12 to 13 years in prison. While he got off light, in my opinion, he was a first-time offender. A lot of judges will not give the max sentences for first-time offenders, but I would have given him 15 at least. But again, my opinion. This is the perfect example of how a father's ambition, fame, and extreme religious belief created a a monster hiding behind the smiling face, a man who was considered a good-natured and caring man, hiding a darker and more depraved side, and enabled by a family who did very little to help him, just covered it up for 15 minutes of fame, covered it up as the perfect family. But this wasn't the perfect family. Dissected, this family is run by two religious zealots who brainwashed their children, who cared very little for the victims of their older child, and who deserves to be shunned and forgotten. As for Josh Duggar, as of now, he is attempting to appeal his sentence. He probably won't see the light of day for 12 years. If sooner, it would be a great injustice.